Today, inshallah, we are going to talk about object OOP basics. So we are going to talk about basic of OOP, motivation, OOP programming concepts, object classes, UML class diagram, details about object and variable. The objective of this course, of this chapter, is to describe objects, classes, and use a class model. Demonstrate how to define a class and create object. To create object and using the constructors. To access objects via object references. To use the Java library, date, random, and point to D. Okay. To distinguish between instance and static variable and method. Define a private data field to store and process objects inside array. And to use this keyword. Okay, so we have here today a lot of different topics. Today I will try to explain the whole lecture. If there is something remaining, I will record it. So today I will start explaining this lecture, these topics. Okay, then let's suppose that the lecture has ended and the time is up, so I will complete recording by myself and I will explain to you the Enum from the previous lecture. Then inshallah we will finish the whole topics that the whole topics included in the midterm. We will finish the whole topics included in the midterm. Okay, so these are the objects that we are going to talk about today. So today we have a variety of topics or things to talk about. So please listen to me carefully. And if you have any question, please raise up your hand and ask me. Okay. This lecture is very important because we are going to talk about basics of object-oriented programming. Okay. Now I will start, inshallah. The basic unit is of OOP is a class, okay, which encapsulate, as you can see here, encapsulation, a class encapsulate methods and variable. Okay, methods and variable. In a Java, a class is a definition of object. In other words, a class is a blueprint or a template or a prototype that define or describe a static object. For example, let's suppose that a human is a class. Okay, so a human has attributes here, like weight, length, eye color, or the color of the eye, the color of the hair, and so on. These attributes are represented in Java or in the class as variables. And also this is a human doing a lot of things and have some behavior. Like eat, drink, sleep, and so on. Now these are represented by methods here. Methods. Okay. Now this is the template of the human. We will include the general attribute, okay, and also the general method that this human does here. Okay, so now I can create from this class objects, object 1, object 2, object 3, object 4, and in each object I will save different value. And for example, my weight is 90, my eye color مثلا is brown, my hair is black. Okay, I eat, I drink, I sleep, maybe I do something else, and so on. And for O2 also I have another object. I have created another object from the human. So he has another weight like 80, color of eyes green, hair black, and has some behavior here. And the same for object-oriented object 1, 2, 3, and object 4, and so on. So these objects are represented or are representing the class human, but each object can save different value. So each object will save different value here. So here and here. Okay. So we represent object using what we call UML, Unified Modeling Language. For a class, we have 3 sections here: name, static attribute, dynamic behavior. So if the UML consists of 3 parts: the name of the class, which is bold, and the static attributes, and the dynamic behavior. So the object, we call it the object of a class, or when we define a variable from this class type, this is what we call an instance of a class, is a creation of object from a class. This is what we call an instance. Okay, instance of a class is creating is a creation of object from a class. The instance from a class have same variable and method as described in the class definition. It is just like taking, let's suppose that we are taking a copy from a class 1. We have defined an instance or object from the class called C1. So these C1 had the same now variables and the same method here. But in each object we can save different value. Here are some examples from the class, like student. We have variable, we have method, okay, variable and method. And also for the scope, soccer player, we have some variable and method, and for the car. Okay, so now object usually refers to an instance of the class. An object represents an entity in the real world, and the real world can be distinctly identified. What do we mean by distinctly? Yani, rarely, in different way, because every object has its own value. Every object has its own value. Look at these figures below. We have this is our class. This is our class or our template. Okay, so we have defined the first object from this class is Paul, name GPA, and have this method get name set GPA. And the other class, the other object is called Peter. He has a name and GPA, and have this method get name and set GPA. As you can see here in these two objects, there are two different values. عندنا قيم مختلفة هنا here and here. Okay. I will leave this video for you. Now I will go look at this video and check out this video to see to clarify or to understand more what is the meaning of objects. Okay. Now I will go to next page. This is an example of another example of a class, just to make sure that you have understand. This is our class here, the template here, and here are the object. We have 3 objects from the template class. This is our class student, has these variables or these attributes. And also we have here a method, print instance variable inside this class system.out to print something, something, something. So here is the method and here are the variable or the attribute. Now we can create from this class different objects. This is the object or instance from this and this and this, as we have said before, these instance or objects hold different distinct or different value from each other. So we can represent each one inside an object or an instance of this class. Okay. Look at this example, guys, and inshallah we will explain this with a new concept, which is constructor. Here I have a class called circle, okay, with this radius. This is an attribute for this circle. I did not write here anything, any modifier before the double here, okay. Now we have what we call constructor, okay. It is not a method, it is a constructor. Look at this constructor. It had the same name as the class, okay. And look at the other constructor. How do I know that this is a constructor? Because it has the same name as the class name. This one and this one. And these constructors do not return any value. ما برجعوش قيمة. Do not return any value. These are what we call constructor. Now you will tell me why we have 2 constructors of this. The option is for you. Okay, you can create 1 constructor or 2 constructor or 3 constructor. Okay, and here is the method for this constructor. Now to clarify the meaning of constructor, now when let's say that we have a baby born, وهذا البيبي born انولد. Now when this baby born, you have the option, or created, in other words, you have the option. You might give him a name, for example, directly, okay, and sometimes you don't, you don't have, or you don't want to give him a name directly. You do not want to give him a name. So here we have 2 ways for this constructor, or for this class of type baby. We have a constructor that to create this baby without a name, like this, without passing any parameter through the constructor, or by passing a name for him. So the constructor has 2 types: parametric or parameterized. That means the constructor has parameter, or non-parameterized. The constructor has no parameter here and here. Okay, so it is the way you will call the object or create the object you specify two ways to create the object, either by non-parameterized constructor, no value, like as I have said, I will have, for example, a baby, but I don't want to pass him or give him a name here. Here, I assume that when I create this constructor or an object of this class, I will give a baby a name for the baby, like this here. I might create a constructor from a circle without radius, but here I need to call to create an instance of this class using this constructor. If I have used this constructor, I should put here a radius in the main program. Okay, so you have now these two options. You have these two options. Now, if I did not, please listen to this carefully. If I did not write this one or this one, by default, I can use non-parameterized constructor. Again, إذا أنا ما حددت في الكلاس هذا, this is not mandatory, it is optional. Okay, إذا أنا ما, if I did not write this one or this one, okay, I can use non-parameterized instructor in the main program. يعني في المين program here, I can, for example, write circle C equal new circle with empty parameter, no parameter here, non-parameterized, empty parameter. If I did not specify, if I did not write these, I can use by default this way. But if I have specified, that's okay. I have now, if I have specified the constructor, I have the two ways, either using this way or this way. And here is the method here. Now, as you can see here, this is the UML. Don't forget the class name, instance, and we have the constructor at the first or at the top of the third section. Don't forget this circle, radius. Here is the second constructor. Also, I have added here some method: get area, get perimeter, set radius, and so on. So the order will be here, the class name. As you can see, it is somehow bolder, and the font here is bold and bigger, okay, or larger, a little bit larger. And we have the radius here, and we have here the method. Now, from this class, I have created this object, okay, this object. This is an example of the constructor. Now, I will go to next slide to clarify again. We will talk about constructor here. This is a good example, guys. Now I have here a class called this symbol circle. Okay, this is a class name. Okay. Now this one, sorry, this is our class. I will start from the right here. Symbol circle. Now this is our class. Okay, symbol circle. We have this class. We have constructor 1, constructor 2, method 1, and method 2. And we have variable here. So this is our class, and this is our variable. Here we have a constructor called symbol circle. Why I figure out or why I said that this is a constructor, because it has the same name, and it does not have any return value, and the radius here is set to 1. And also I have another constructor, but this is a parameterized constructor. As you can see here, take a value, it is a radius, and the radius will be set here. So every time in this instructor if I use this constructor, the radius here, which is defined here in the class, will be set to 1. In the second constructor, no, I will pass, for example, a value 5, for example, and this value will be set to or assigned to the radius here. So the radius, what is this radius? It is a variable here. So we have two ways to construct object or a class from this one, and this one. And also I have two methods for calculating the area and calculating the perimeter. And also I have another method for setting the radius or putting value inside the radius. But what is the difference between this and this? They are the same here, but here I am setting value when I initialize an object from the circle. Here I can use this method to change the radius value. This method called set. Okay, so this method holds or has new radius value. For example, if I have entered 10 in the main program, the value 10 will be here set to new radius, and the new radius will be assigned to the radius. Okay. So we have these three, as you can see here, three methods now. Guys, let's take a better look at the get and set, because this will help me to go quickly through the pages or through the slides. Now we have shabab here get area and get perimeter. Okay, now get means return a value. As you can see here, get always more any method or most of the method that has get name. I am talking about the naming him. Get has the word get here. That means this method will return a value. So as you can see here, there is a return type. في عندنا نوع راجع من get هذا. And here is another return type. And there is a return statement. So get always return a value. But now set here, it does not return any value, but it change or assign the value of a variable or of something here. So set method usually does not return any value, and it will be of type void. Get method will return a value, but it will not change any value. So the set is changing a value inside the class, but it will not return anything. شوف الset. So the return type is of type void. But usually get area return a value. بتحسب قيمة. But it will not change any value. It will return a value, a return type, but it will not change any radius. Here I did not change the radius. I'm just calculating the area. Here I'm just calculating the perimeter. Now let's go to the main here. So don't forget get and set. We have here our first constructor, circle one. It is an object or an instance from this one, but I used here the first method. Now if I have called this constructor here without parameter, it seems that means I will call this constructor and the value of the radius will be 1. So if I have printed here the circle dot radius, the value will be 1, and the area circle 1 dot get area will be calculated here based on the radius. The radius will be equal 1. So 1 by 1 by 3.14, I will print the area here. So as you can see here, system.out.print use get, not set, because I'm going to print the return value from this one. Okay, the return value from get area, this method. Now I can also create a circle with radius 125 like this. Circle, a new simple circle. I have passed this one to here. So the radius now become 1, 2, 5. Then I have a printed circle 2. It is another object here. And also I have printed the area using this method. But the value will be 1, 2, 5. The third way is to put directly here circle.radius equal 100, like this. Okay, circle 2.radius. I have assigned the value to circle 2, writing 100. Okay. Then I have also printed the radius like this. And also I have called this method. So this method will now calculate the area based on the value here, based on this one. So here I have used 3 ways to calculate the area. First constructor non-parameterized, no parameter, and here parameterized. And the third one is by assigning the radius to some value, then calculating the area. So this is the main idea of constructor. Using this class example, I will go to next slide now. Okay, now here are some important rules for you guys. If you have two classes into one file, yani I have a Java file, and this file called class contains 2 classes or more, 3 classes, 4 classes, whatever. I can do this in Java. I have more than 1 class. Okay. Only 1 class can be a public class. So if you want to define a public class, you can only define 1 public class. This is the first rule of defining a class and creating object. In the Java file, we have a Java file, and we have here 2 classes. Now, only 1 class should be a public class. You can define this as public or this as public, not both. If you want to leave them non-public, okay, and you can write the word public here or here. You can, not you should, you can. Okay. You can leave them without public, but if you want to add some of them as a public class, okay, you should write the word public at only 1 class. Public here, for example, at 1 class. Don't forget this one, at 1 class. And also the public class should be the same name as the file name. For example, if the file name is this simple circle to Java, so the class name should be this simple circle. This is the third rule, the second rule. And if I want this public class here, class 1, and we have a class 2, the public class should be the same as the physical or the file name, the Java file. The third thing here, here we are talking about how the compilation process happens. If you have defined more than 1 class like this, the Java, when compiling this to Java virtual machine and converting the Java code to executable code in the hexadecimal, the Java file after compilation will generate 2 classes. 2 files of type class, 2 files of type class. Why we have here after the compilation 2 two files of type class has been generated because inside the Java file I have two classes. This is the class 1 and this is the class 2. If I have a class 3, then here we will, after run a compilation and building the program or the application, and supposing that the compile process is finished successfully, let's suppose that I have a class 1, a class 2, and class 3. So in that case, 3 class file will be generated. Okay, 3 class file will be generated. So if we have more than one class, you can add only one public class. The public class name should be as the file name. And also, if you have compiled this Java file, 2 class file will be generated. 2 class file will be generated. I will go to this also class. Look at this, guys, here. Also another example to make sure that the idea is clear. Here I have a class TV and I have this variable. I have the first constructor here, which is public TV, non-parameterized constructor, and I have added here this method, turn on. I make here on true, turn off, I make on false, set channel, and check the channel before I change it. If the channel between 1 and 20, I will do something. And if the TV is on and the channel is within this range, I will do something here. Set volume is the same. If the volume is between between 1 and 7, and the TV is on, I will do another thing. Okay, so now I am thinking or depending on object-oriented thinking. I have TV type class. This TV has the following methods, 1, 2, 3 inside this class. And I have one for the channel up. I will check the channel or increase the channel by 1 or go to next channel here. Channel down, go to previous channel. Okay. I will check if it is on, the TV is on, and the value is greater than 1. I will decrease the channel or go to previous channel. And here is for the volume up, volume down. And in the main program here, this is how I have construct TV1, TV2. I have turn on TV1 and TV2, set channel to 30 for TV1, and set the volume to 3 to TV1. And here I have used the channel up twice, and I have also used the volume up twice. Okay. Look at this شباب. دائما channel is set as we have said بتاخذ value. بينما هنا لا. يعني الست هذا عادة للتعديل. To change a value inside or to change a variable or attribute inside something. Set channel to 30. بتروح هذه 30 على الشانل بتتغير. هيا. set volume to 3 بتروح هذه ال 3 على وين؟ على set volume وينها؟ سوري هذا set volume وبتتغير. set channel أنا خربطت في الرسم here. set channel هي 30 بتروح هنا and it will be changed. Set volume will go there and the value will be changed. So usually set are taking value and changing something inside my program, inside my class, sorry. Inside my class. So this is another example to make everything clear to you. Now I will go to next slide. So in Java, constructor is a block of code. I have talked about constructor, similar to the method with the name of a class, but the constructor should have the same name as the class name. هذه الفكرة الأولى. The second idea is automatically called when an instance of the object is created. There are two types of constructor, non-argument or non-parameterized and parameterized constructor, and we have talked about this previously. Constructors are special kind of method that are invoked to construct object or to create an instance from an object. This is also important. If I did not, default constructor is provided automatically if no constructor are defined in the class. So if I have a class 1, for example, and I did not define any constructor, يعني حطيت هنا method 1, method 2, مثلا variable 1, can I construct or create an instance from this class? Yes, I can. I can write by default class 2 equals C2 يساوي new class 2. But I did not have a constructor from this. I did not define any constructor here inside this class. Okay, so if I did not define any constructor, I can use the default constructor which is provided automatically inside the class, which is non-default constructor, which is non-R constructor, yani with empty parameter. So I have talked about this previously. I am just repeating what I have said to make sure that you have understood this. Now I will go to next slide, to next page. Rules of constructor again. Constructor must have the same name. Constructor do not have return type. Constructor are invoked or called when you create an object. Constructor play the role of initialization the object. So I can initialize an object like circle with a radius or without radius. I can, for example, initialize, as I have said in the beginning of this lecture, I can initialize, for example, an instance or object of type baby with a name or without a name. So the rule of structure, the constructor used for initialization, constructor are called in the main method using the word new. Constructor do not have a return type, as we have seen before, and also constructor have the same name as the class itself. We'll go to next page now. Here just some type of some example of calling or some line of code about creating object using this constructor. This is non-arg constructor or non-parameterized. It has no parameter. And here is the second one. Here we have class name student1 and new student, the word new, and here the object, and here is the student, the word new and the class. Okay. Now we will just talk about more deeply. We will talk more deeply about declaring the object reference variable here. Now, guys, the syntax for creating an object, as we have seen before, writing class name, and object reference variable. I have. We call this, we give a name like this for this variable, just to clarify that any variable or any object class created from a class is a reference, to something. So if I have created object var from the class name, it is just like something. We have object reference var, a reference to something, reference to the class name here. This is the class. Okay. For example, circle, my circle. Now my circle is reference to circle. My circle is reference to circle. Here is the but when we complete the code now, this reference will points إذا بتتذكروا الpointers or will look at what this class name. Okay, so I can access this object as we have mentioned in the previous example, writing something like this: object reference var name.data or variable. This is the variable name, for example, my circle.radius. Or also I can call the method writing the word object reference var.method name with some arguments here. Okay, like this is optional, of course. My circle.getArea. Okay, so if I have defined object from a class, it will just be like a reference to this class. And by using this reference, I can use whatever I like or whatever I want from the data field, variable name, or the method, or calling any method name. But here we have a little bit, we have a limitation. Not all data can be called in the other class. Some of these variables are private. We will talk about this later. A private, and I cannot do anything inside. I cannot call them inside any other class. They are not defined. They are private only in the class here. I can use them here inside the class because they are private. If they are private to this class, I cannot call them in another class. I cannot use them in other class. Okay, so but here in general now, before we go on details, we can define any object and call it. We can define any object from any class and call it now initially in other class. I can access the fields or the data or the attributes, and also I can access the method as we have seen before. Now let's take a look, and this is actually important to you guys. Look at this, guys. Some data field can be primitive data type, and some of them can be reference type. For example, the following هذا class fee primitive data. What about the string شباب? Is this a primitive data string? أشوفكم معي ولا لا? String, is it a primitive data?
I think yes.
Yeah, primitive. We have, if you remember the graph that we have seen before, we have integer character and we have also integer character double, whatever. These are primitive data. But if you remember, we have said in the string هو class. عشان كذا الاس capital. It is not a primitive data. But these values are primitive data. Primitive. Any primitive data has a default value. If it is integer, it will be 0. If it is Boolean, it will be false. If it is character, it will be this character. Okay. So it has a default value. But for non-primitive value, imagine this, that I have inside this class, I have a student called a class called student. Okay. And inside the student, I have variable called name. This variable or this object is of type string. This name is looking at a class called string. So I can now, using this word, I can use all the variable and all the method inside the string class. This is a built-in class. يعني هو موجود inside the language في اللغة. If the value is non-primitive, okay, the default value will be null. So you have to be careful while or during your program and or during writing the code. If you have dealt with non-primitive data type like a string, okay, you have to be careful. The value or the default value for this variable is null. So you cannot deal with them directly. You have to check if the value is null or not. If they cannot null, you cannot do anything. If it is not null, you can do whatever you like. Concatenation, addition, whatever you like. So if you have created a primitive value from something, as we have said before, if you remember the array, it will have default value. But if we did not, if you remember, sorry for this, الارray حكينا في عندنا integer, array of integer or boolean, if you remember, or character. If I have initialized the array, the default value for integer will be 0, for boolean will be false, for character will be this character. Okay, but if it is of type string, there are no default value. The value will be of type null. So you have to check the value before using it. If the value is null, you cannot do anything. You cannot even print it. You cannot print it on the screen. Okay, so you have to be careful with this one or any class object, because also if you have defined S1 of type student, this is a reference. It is not a primitive of type. It is not a primitive type. This S1 object is of type student. So you have to check if this object is null or not. Okay, you have to check if this object is null or not before using the object. Okay, as string is more clear example for you now in this level. Now you have here a name which is of type string. String is non-primitive, so the default value for the name is null. So be careful when you use it. Now in the next slide, guys, I think here, guys, this activity, if you have, what are the non-primitive value? Non-primitive, these are primitive value. These are string name had reference. زي ما قلنا هو name reference to a class of type string. So this is a reference variable here. Okay, and he has no default value. The value will be null. And we have this primitive value. And the default value for the data for non-primitive value is null. For a primitive numeric 0, boolean, false, character, this character. So these can be printed. You can work with them whatever you like. But if you have tried, for example, based on the example above, on the class above, here, I did not initialize any value for string or age or boolean or something, as you can see here. And if I have tried this code and tried to print the age will be printed successfully. The science will be printed successfully on the screen, and the same for gender. But for the name here, a runtime error will show up to you. Runtime error. Time error. It is a Java, it is null pointer exception. Null pointer exception. You will see this error a lot in your program or in your real life or career file, career life. If I have tried to print the name has no value. This one. And this is not a primitive value. And it has no initialized value. So the value of this is null. You cannot print null on the screen. This will cause a runtime error. You cannot do anything with null value. Okay. This, if you try to print this on the screen, راح يعطيك هنا in this case runtime error. Runtime error. because the value is none. The value is none. Okay, be careful with these as I have said. هنا الواي راح تكون عندكم y of type string راح تكون الفاليو هنا null. هذه null راح يعطيك run time error. هذه y of type string هي الفاليو راح تكون null. Okay. السلام عليكم. We will continue inshallah now. We have a difference between variable between variable of primitive data. This is a primitive one, as we have said, and we have the object type. شوفوا شباب, look at this. Here guys we have primitive. هذا المعروف عندكم هو value variable وفي قيمة هنا. But any variable of type object or non-primitive data هو reference. Guys, هو reference. We mean by reference when you have defined a customer, it is an instance of type a new customer here. In that case, you have defined a reference to this class, a reference to this class. So as you can see here, int I equal 1. Here we have put 1 inside the I, okay? And here circle C, it is a reference to the circle here, a reference to the circle. It is a reference to a circle here. So C is reference to the circle. Look at the class circle, okay? But so these objects here are referencing to their classes or pointing at their class, okay? But for the primitive value here, it is just like any other variable. It is a variable has an address and have value, and this also variable has an address and a value. It is just, if you remember pointer in C++, something refer to another thing, or something points to other thing. So objects are references, don't forget this. String are references, and so on. Actually, we are going to talk about this, inshallah, with the static. Also, now static type later in this lecture, but later static value. Okay. Here again we have int A, int B, as you can see here. We have here C1 and we have here C2. Also we have here int I, int copy. And here we have the instance of circle C and circle C2. Now look at this, guys, here. I have defined here two instances of circle, C2 and C1. So now C1 will look at this circle, and C2 will look at the circle here. Now, just like pointers or references in C++, what I have done here, I have assigned C2, the reference value of C2 to C1. That means I have made C2 look at what I have made C1, C1, look at what C2 is looking at. Again, I made here C2 looking or pointing at what is C2 pointing at. That, for example, if here the value is 1000, a reference value هنا here 1000. Here I have put 1000 as reference to C1 as a reference. So now C1 will point or look at what C2 is looking for. Now what would happen to this reference? شو راح يصير? And again here I have here C1, a new circle 5, and I have C2. Okay, if I written something, now C1 is looking at this, and also I have defined, for example, C2. Now I have both here defined C2 and I have both C for C2. That means I have made C2 look at what is C is pointing for. Now C is pointing to this. Now let's suppose إنه هذا الC فيها 500. الريفرنس هذا الادرس هو 500. Now الادرس ال 500 أنا ضفته وين؟ في الريفرنس لل C2. الريفرنس. Now C2 is looking to the same address لهذا القيمة. Okay. طب what would happen to this? If you remember in C++ كنت تعملوا, you were doing delete something to clear the memory. If you remember a dynamic variable in C++, we were clearing. كنا نعمل clearing لهذه الأشياء هنا. كنا نعمل clear هنا لهذه this value delete هذا. كنا نعمل delete هنا لهذه الفاليو. طيب نعمل delete for this value in C++. Now in Java, the Java will automatically delete it unreferenced one. This is what we call Java garbage collection. Here we call Java garbage collection. الآن what would happen? Garbage collection هذا. Garbage collection GC, a form of automatic memory management. In Java, garbage is automatically collected by Java virtual machine. في هذا garbage collection بشوف أي شيء not reference to something. هذا C2 can look at this. Now sorry, C1 was looking at this. Now C2 and C1 are looking to this based on this statement here. So what would happen with this? It will be cleaned. راح تتنظف. clean. Okay, clean. راح تتنظف. Okay. So this is the idea behind the garbage collection. Now I will go now to next slide. Here we have in this page actually we have two classes to talk about. The date one. Okay. The date one and the random. In the next page we will talk about the random class. So we have two classes, data class and random class. Okay. Now the data class, Java provide a system independent encapsulation date and time in the java.utl date. Java.utl.date. You can use the data class to create an instance for the current date and the time. Use its toString method. So here just we give you a brief description, and we want to inform you that there is something in Java called a data class. This data class contains a lot of methods. This is a constructor. This is a constructor. This is a method, convert the date to string. This is something to get the date, the time. This is something also to set the time. So what we want to tell you here that we have in Java a class of type date, or a class called date, and this data class has these two instructors, and all of course have a lot of methods other than these. Okay, like toString, to convert date to string, to get the time, to set the time. Okay, as you can see here, the description for this string. Now here شباب الديت هذا لاحظوا في UML راح تلاحظوا انه في شيء عليه كذا بلس. Listen to me careful. Something has a plus sign. شو معنى بلس؟ يعني public. شو معنى بلس؟ هي public. اوكي. اذا شفت كذا ماينس هذه معناها برايفت. We have a plus here. Plus mean public. If it is minus mean private. If you have something underlined يعني في شيء تحتيه خط بكون static. Static. Okay. Static. Static. Okay. That's something called what? Static. إذا في underline راح نشوف الآن something راح تشوف تحت كذا underline. هذا static. Okay. إذا plus mean public. If minus mean private. Private. Okay. Now, guys, we have another class called random. Random, we have first of all in the math class something called random, if you remember. هذا موجود في الماث. Now, in this page, we are telling you that there are more useful random class in Java to generate a random number called Java in java.util.random. Another class. This one, you have to import it, import the random class, and this random class has the following instance. Non-argument instance of type public. Okay, it is the modifier plus mean public. Random with a number. Seed, it is something, seed معناها بذرة تعطيك كأنه لا for هذا الراندوم عشان يعطيك to give you or to generate a random number. We have next int, next intn, next long, next double, next float, next boolean. As you can see here, we have here low overloading, the same type, the same name, but different parameter. Okay, these are constructor because they have the same name as the class name. Random. Class name is random. These are the constructor, and these are the methods here. The methods here. So we have next integer, next long, next double, next float, next boolean. And here we have just implement some example or a small example to tell you what is this about. Now here we have used this constructor for random 1 and random 2. Here we have used this one. And the same for this, the same seed, 3 and 3. And we have generalized this random number. And here we have specified the range 1000. Look at this method, return هذه أيها اللي هي هذه. We have used this and this. Okay, this and this. Now here, what we have done here, we have printed a random number between 0 to 1000 here. You will return a random integer value between 0 and n. And they are telling you here in these two random, if we have used here seed, okay, we have used here a seed here 3 and 3, the same seed, that means it will return the same output. Okay, I will go to next slide. As you can see here, the same seed means the same output. But if you have run it again, I think different value will be generated. I mean, if you have run the program again. Okay, Instance variable and method. Instance variable belong to a specific instance. Instance methods are involved by instance of the class. Static variable and static method and static constant. Now, note that we have here, we will talk about the static shabab. Static variable are shared by all instances of the class. Okay, now static method also are not tied to a specific object. يعني هي مش مربوطة في object واحد، هي تابعة للميثود للكلاس كامل. Static constant, the same as the variable, are shared variable by all the instances of the class. شوفوا الستاتيك هذا how we are dealing with static. Here guys, we have circle, static double, number of objects n1, int. We have class circle, radius double, number of objects int. We have also get number of objects, and we have get area, and we have defined here circle 1 and what, and circle 1 and circle 2. Okay, circle 1 and circle 2. These are objects of the circle class. Now guys, here we have, look at this. Some of them are underlined. شايفينهم؟ معي شباب انتو؟ underlined. معي guys ولا مش معي؟
اي معك.
نعم تمام ممتاز. Underline, we mean by underlined إنه هذا static. Static variable mean it is shared by all instances. Okay, يعني static method mean not tied to a specific object. يعني هذا مش مربوط فقط في C1، هذا مربوط مع الكلاس هذا الميثود، وهذا shared مع كل الانستنس. الآن they are telling you that in the memory الراديوس كان 1 هنا. اوكي، فلا C1 و C2 the radius it is not a static زي ما انتم شايفين. هاي ما في تحت خط هذا no line, it is not underlined, so it is not a static. So الفاليو لل C1 the circle 1 هي 1، the circle 2 هي whatever 5 مثلا. ماشي. But the number of object هذا static هو shared between the two classes. هو الآن 2. راح نشوف next why it is 2 now. It is shared. In other words, static شباب variable static variable, it is just like references. Okay. static هي reference. يعني إذا أنت عرفت define متغير x وهذا المتغير int static، okay، in the class هذا الx بكون عبارة عن reference على هذا الكلاس. If you have used x في C1 أو C2 أو class 1 أو class 2 في داخل object C1.x and C2.x are reference to the same value. This is the meaning of static. This is, in other words, it is shared by all the instances of a class. I will go to next example or to next page to clarify this to you. Now guys, here I don't know if the result, no, the result is not written here. Now here guys, we have a circle with static member and we have circle with static member here. Now look at this. The radius هذه it is not static. في كلمة static? No, it is not static. It is not shared. Now number of object is shared. كأنه الآن عندي أنا C1 كذا و C2 فيها number of object. هاي C1 new circle with static member, and also I have C2. هاي C1 and C2. And now because the number of objects inside the class is static, that means انه C1 dot number of object هذا المتغير number of object dot number of object هنا and C2 dot number of object reference to the same location. Now what happened here? I have here create this instance now. Then I have called C1 dot number of object. C1 dot number of object I have called it, which is where? It is where is the number of object? C1 dot number of object. It will be printed. I have here, sorry, I have called C1 a new circle with static member. عرفنا الاوبجكت هذا راح على الكونستراكتور اللي هو هذا. طيب circle static member حط we have assigned radius to 1 and number of object it was 0 at the beginning, now it will become 1. So when you print the same value, the value will be printed 1. الآن we went to we have an instance another circle here, circle with a static member say 2 يساوي new circle with a static member 5. What do we mean by this? We mean by this إنه we have called C2 create an object and we call the same instance هذا اللي هو sorry not the same هذا الانستنس لأنه here I have passed the value اللي هي 5. Okay. In the first one radius كانت 1 when number of objects became 1. In the second one the radius I have sent 5 الراديوس راح يكون 5. طب what about the number of objects? Is it going to be 1 or 2? What do you think, guys? Number of objects, is it going to be 1 or 2?
1.
1. What is there any other answer? No, it will be 2 because it is static. It is static, ثابت. Okay, it will keeps its value. الآن I have called this one again. I have called this one here, this constructor. Now in this constructor, the number at the beginning number of object was 0. Now the number of object when I call this constructor was 0. I have increased it by 1, so it become 1. Now C1 dot number of object and C2 are looking at the same location. Why? Because the variable type is of type static, as we have said. Now I have called circle 2. Okay, and I have passed 5. راح يصير الراديوس 5. راح يصير number of objects كم؟ بدل ما هو 1 راح يتحول إلى 2. أيوه increased by 1. Because these two variables, because these are of type static, are looking at the same location. So if I have created C1 and C2, C1 dot number of objects and C2 dot number of objects are looking to the same location. So first of all, you will print 1. Second of all, the value will be printed 2. طيب. I will clear now. هشوف هنا القيمة الأولى راح تكون أول مرة النمبر اوف اوبجكت راح تكون 1. بعديها القيمة الثانية راح تتغير لما تطبعها مرة ثانية راح تصير 2. ولكن هي شيرد. هاي فأول مرة في الرننج الأولى الستمنت الأولى راح تكون 0 تصير 1. Now راح يرد يغيرها في هذا الكونستراكتور it will become 1 plus اللي هي 2. طيب not 1. هاي. Now I have printed C1 dot number of object. هيها C1 dot number of object أول مرة كانت 0 first time, then it became 1 when you call the first instructor. In the second instructor it become 2, and because they are static, so they are pointing or reference reference to the same location. In the code, I have again printed C1 dot number of object, which is 2. أيها. راح تكون هنا 2. 2. Now, my question is, if I did not put or write the word static here, إذا أنا ما كتبت الword static, شو راح يصير? What would happen? يلا guys. If I did not write the word static here, شو راح يصير? What would happen? معي انتو؟ معي شباب؟
معك.
إذا أنا ما حطيت الword static, شو القيمة راح تصير؟ إذا أنا if I did not put the word static راح يكون إلها C1 إلها قيمة radius وإلها number of object no shared value. و C2 إلها radius هذا راح يكون 1 number of object راح يكون من 0 يتحول 1 في الفيرست constructor. في السكند constructor الراديوس راح يصير 5 من number of object كم راح يكون؟ راح يبدأ من 0 again وكم راح يصير؟ 1. They are not shared together. But if you have the word static, that means you are sharing the same variable among the objects or among the instances of this class. So if you did not write the word static راح تكون هنا القيمة 1 1. If you have written the word static راح تكون 1. C2 dot number of object راح تكون 2 في الكونستراكتور الثاني هذا. هنا راح تكون 0 تصير 1. لما تحاول تقول it again راح تكون من 1 تتغير ل 2. So if you have printed C2 dot number of object راح يعطيك 2. وإذا طبعت C1 dot number of objects of course it will give you 2. يعني راح يعطيك كمان 2. Okay. I will go now to next slide. This is important actually. The next one is very important. I don't يعني say very important for the exam. يعني don't think that I don't say that for the exam. I don't know actually the question of the exam now. I am saying this is important for your programming. Okay, for the programs and for you يعني for your in the course. This table is very important table in the course. It contains a very useful and important data. Now guys, we have in Java something, and also in C actually, we have something called modifier. Okay, modifier. Now the modifier, look at this one. هذا شباب called modifier هنا. Modifier. Okay, modifier. Modifier, something modify the accessibility of the variable. Something modify accessibility of the variable. It is before the variable type. I will show you another example. Then I will go back just to make it clear to you guys. Where is the modifier here? هذا modifier. Okay, and this is a modifier. Okay. This is a modifier. It is written before the variable type. It is written before the variable type. Okay, now we have here 4 types and a modifier called default. What do we mean by default? We mean by default there is no word before the variable type. يعني إذا أنا كتبت كذا intx وما ضفت أي قيمة هنا، ما كتبت public ولا private ولا protected. I did not write a private or a protected or public. In that case, it will be default. If I did not write anything, in that case, this variable will be accessible here in the same class and in the same package subclass, okay, and in the same package non-subclass, in the same class, in the same package subclass, in the same package non-subclass. In different package, it will not be accessible. Different package. What do we mean by package? If you remember, when you create, first of all, I will explain the meaning by package, then I will explain the meaning by subclass and non-subclass. Okay, but be patient with me, please. Now we might have more than, in our program or in our Java project, we might have more than one package in our project or more than one application. If you remember, when you created some files in Java in the lab, there was a word called package. Each application is a package. You can use the first application, your project, and the second application, and import this one to this one, or this one to this one. So you might define a class in the first package here, class 1, and use it in the second package. And you might define something in the second package, class 5, for example, and use it here. So what would happen with the variable inside the classes? How can I access them or not? It depends. If it is default or private or protected or public. Now, if it is default, if I did not write anything, these variable will not be accessible or defined in different package. But in the same package for subclass, they will be defined. In the same package for non-subclass also will be defined. What do we mean by subclass and class, Shabab? Subclass and non-subclass. subclass هو هذا الكلاس كلاس اللي هو class 1 هذا let's say this is a class 1. Okay, هذا class 1. We have a class 2. في الجافا بنقدر نعمل شيء بسموه extends. What do we mean by extends? يعني يرث class 2 extends a class 1. class 1. class 2 extends. راح نشوف الآن هذه الكلمة هي معناها يرث. A class 2 extends a class 1. What do we mean by this? شو معنى هذا الكلام؟ شو معنى هذا الكلام؟ class 2 extends a class 1. شو معناه؟ هذا هو sub class بورث هذا الكلاس. ليش هذا sub class؟ لأنه هو extends something. But the class 1 هنا does not extend any classes. يعني هو ما بورث شيء فهو non-sub. non-sub class. non-sub class. So now we have distinguished between package 1, package 2, application 1, application 2. I can define a class in package 1 and I can use this class and variable in package 2 but based on this modifier. If I did not write anything في the same class, I can of course use the variable زي ما انتم شايفين في كل الحالات سواء public, protected, private, default. If I am in the same class, I can use the variable for sure. Now I will go vertically during default. If I am in the same package and I have used a class extends something of another class, يعني فرضنا انه هذه class 2 extends class 1 وفي class 1 فيها variable x. فهنا if I did not write anything يعني كتبت كذا int x, I can use x here because class 2 extends class 1. And of course, I can use x inside it here. In different package, if I have here these classes in package 1, and I have here package 2, okay, and I have imported p1, يعني عملت import ل p1 لداخل package 2. If the modifier was default, يعني I did not write any word, I cannot use هذا الفاريبل. حتى لو عملت import b1 روح تجيب b1 استدعيتها داخل b2. if you try to use x هذا داخل different package اللي هي b2 عملت import ل b1 inside b2. if you have tried to use this variable inside a different package this will raise up for you an error. يقول لك انه you cannot do anything with this لانهم هذه default. Now this is the first modifier. For the private guys, for the private إذا same class تقدر تستخدم. Other than that, same package, different package subclass, different package subclass, or non-subclass, whatever, I cannot use it. Then the private can be used only inside the class. Okay. Anything public, أي شيء public شباب, you can use it. سواء داخل الكلاس خارج الكلاس في باكج مختلفة two different package you can use it. Just you need to import and use what the way you like. In different package, in the same package you can use it in any class. You just create an instance and use it. الآن الشيء المختلف somehow يعني عندنا شوي tricky اللي هو البروتكتد. protected معناه محمي. Okay. Now in the same class I can use it. In the same package subclass I can use it. In the same package non-subclass I can use it. In different package in subclass I can use it. In different package for non-subclass I cannot use it. Now this I will explain it by the example below عشان يكون clear أكثر لكم. I will explain it in the example in the upcoming example below إن شاء الله. في عندي مجموعة example I will go through them quickly إن شاء الله. Just I will clear now the drawing and I will go to next slide. Now default شباب هذا default. قلنا default هو accessible in the same package. هاي نرجع للتابل when accessible في the same class of course all of them. الdefault في the same package here فقط. In different package it is not accessible. فهنا شوف أنا عندي I have package 1 I have here default. Why this is default method? Because I did not write any word here. ما كتب public ولا private ولا protected. I did not write anything here. Now can I use الديفولت في باكج مختلفة باكج 2 حتى even I have imported the package يعني I have imported the package B1. Can I use display here? It is defined in different package in B1. No. راح يعطيك compile time error because object OBG هذه it is of type class A. Can I use it inside package 2? I cannot. This will cause a compile error. I cannot use it. As mentioned in the table here, I cannot use default inside different package. Even though I have done import. Import ما بعنيني. أنا عملت import. Okay, I tried. But because this is a default one, why this is default again? Because I did not write any word here. I cannot use this object to display. I cannot call it because this will cause a compile time error. Now this one. This is the first example. For a private, only you can use this inside variable inside the same class. So for example, I have a class A and I have a method called private void display. What's the type of this method? Is private. Can I use this method inside the class B? No. راح يعطيك has private access in راح يعطيك error because object to display is a private method inside A. not B. Because it's a private, I cannot use it. Only I can use it inside my class. I can use it inside my class. This is the second example. This is a private. Now I will go to the third one here, اللي هو protected. Package P1, package P2. Now, public class A. Now the third one is a little bit tricky, guys. Listen to me carefully. Package 1 B1, public class A1, protected هذه void display system.out.print hello world. هذا display what does this method do? Print a value in a class A. Now let's go back to the table again. The protected can be accessible on the same class, in the same package, So either it was subclass or non-subclass. In different package with subclass, yes. Okay. In different package with non-subclass, no. Don't forget this. So I will go back again now. Here, we will go back here. Now, here we have the protected one. I will go back again to the protected. Now, listen to this. Now I have this one. In the same package, yes. Different package now. Okay, different package. I have imported B1. Okay, time. I will check. Is B, Shabab, subclass or non-subclass? What do you think? Is B a sub or non-subclass? Subclass. Why? Because it is extending what? A. So now B, it is in a different class, different package, package 2. But B extends A. بورث A. فهو subclass. Can I use this method inside it? Yes. طيب. لو أنا مش كاتب هذه الجملة. If I did not write extends A, what would happen?
subclass.
Will give us error. How do I memorize this? كيف أنا بتذكرها أو how do I remember it أو كيف بحفظها؟ The protected شباب باختصار. The protected هو المحمي. Okay. If you want to take it outside your home or your package, this protected variable should be protected by his father. مش هذا son. تخيلوها إنه هذا son. Imagine that this is a son and this is a father. So the protected one, class B should extend what? A. Class B should extend what? A. So protected will work in other package if the class came, let's say, came with his father. Of the son, we have a son and the father. That means the father will protect this one. So you can use this method here. But if there is no extent, this will cause a compile error. If there is no extent, will cause a compile error regarding to the table above. Again, هذا التابل هنا no. ما في. Non sub no. فقط هذا الحال احنا اللي شفناه. We saw this case. Now in public, sorry for this, we will be late for a few minutes. In public, guys, احنا الآن protected. I will go to public. The public can be used anywhere. Just import and use. Either in the same package, different package, as you can see here, public P1 class A, P2 import P1 class B. I can use it anywhere. Okay. Now, guys, طيب. What we recommend as a programmer? As a programmer, as we said, object-oriented is about object. And هي بالنهاية هي object. Okay. We recommend إنه الvariable هنا وفيها encapsulation. If you look at the first slide. We recommend, but this is not necessary in all cases. إنه خلي الفاريبل داخل الكلاس كلها private. وهذا private. Okay. And use method to access the variable. Use public method to access the variable عشان تقدر تعمل access لهذه الفاريبل. So we have accessors and mutators method. Okay. In accessors we use get. In Java, accessors are used to get the value of a private field. Mutators are used to set the value of a private field. So any method usually أي method تبدأ في set have the word set هذه ما بترجع قيمة هذه void. ولكن هي set هذه تأخذ قيمة للتعديل الفاليو as we said at the beginning of our lecture. Set takes a value. Okay. الجيت لا العكس الجيت هي it does not modify the value it return a value return value. فhere we don't have يعني we have data type of course data type get but no parameter. This is a standard thing يعني usually if you find any method starts with the word get here it will return a value but it will not receive any value, no parameter. A set is the opposite of the get. Positive set here modify the value but it does not return any value, it is of type void and it receives a value. El get لا does not receive anything, it just return a value. In the upcoming example you will see the difference between them. شوفوا شو اللي بصير عندنا. We call this getters and setters معروفين عندنا. Moderators, getters and setters. Look at this guys quickly. Here we have class private int number and we have public int get number. شوفوا هذا private. I cannot access it in any other class. It is recommended to make our variable private. So it depends on the case, but it is recommended, okay? Not required, recommended. And it depends on the case. A public int get number, return number. هذا public can be used anywhere. هذا set void set number. It receive a value and change the value of the private number, as we said at the beginning of our class. And here we have public class cat, private int age. Another example, public int get age, return this to age. This means this is class. Public void set age, receive a value. شوفوا set دائما void, get دائما return a time. So how we can access these inside our program? I cannot use this variable directly. I can use this variable, or I can access this variable through the getter and setter. Look at this guys. هذا radius, هذا circle, هذا static, هذا constructor public, هذا public, okay. هذا public. هذا method get radius to get the radius, set the radius to set the radius. Why I have used this? Because the value here, the variable here is of type what? شوفوا هنا minus. شو يعني minus? Private. And this is a static one. Static and private. هذا static فيها تحته خط underline and private. So here is the representation of this one. Don't forget null minus mean private. It is a minus, so I need to use getter and setter method to access this variable in this class anywhere, because it is public here, so I can use them anywhere. Now I will go to next one. هذا اليو ام ال زي ما شفنا هنا. اوكي. الساين هذه they are telling you that the minus means private number. Okay, right. The accessor methods these are اللي هم accessors method are used only with private. Okay, private. فهذه accessors اللي هي setters. هذه set radius get radius. Okay, get radius. Okay, get number of objects is also mutators. Okay, now here we have just a quick example. I will not take too much time with you. Just we will follow up the code. شوفوا هنا شو اللي بصير معنا. These are the circle class. هاي في عندنا private. We have public static. Now here we have circle with private data field my circle. What I have done here, أنا عملت constructor a new circle with a private data field. A new circle with a private data field. هذا في قيمة أنا أرسلت هنا 5. أوكي. كم صار في هذا الراديوس؟ هذا الراديوس now contains 5. بالرغم إنه private but I have accessed it through the constructor. هذا private but أنا كيف عملت له access? I did not call it. I have sent the value to it here. I can do that. Okay, but I cannot use it inside the class here. Now system.out.println my circle.get radius. الآن الراديوس تخزن فيه هذا اللي هو 5. الآن بروح بستدعي we are going to call the get radius. بروح بدور على الميثود اللي اسمها get radius. It is راح تلقوها هنا. وين هي؟ هي get radius. شو بترجع هذه؟ return radius اللي هو 5. راح يطبع لك اياها على الشاشة. بعدين راح يعمل my circle.getArea. getArea is a public method اللي هي هذه. يعمل لك بضرب الراديوس 5 في 5 فيها بيطبع لك النتيجة. الآن what would happen here? I will go. هذا الأولى. الثاني I have called my circle.setRadius. شوفوا أنا هنا to access the radius to change the value of the radius I have used setRadius. ما استخدمت. I did not use radius directly because radius is a private one here. I cannot use it directly. It is a private. هنا هو private. I cannot use it directly. Okay. So to access this one in another way other than using the constructor, دون ما استخدم الكونستراكتور, I have here written my circle.getRadius. circle.getRadius حاليا فيها 5. هي 5 فيها. اوكي 5 مضروبة في 1.1 يعني بصير هذا كله 5.5 because it is multiplied by 1.5. 1.1. الآن my circle.getRadius. بعدين طبعت الget radius my circle. I did not write again my circle.radius directly. No, I have used the public method اللي هي mutators اللي هي get radius. هذه طبعت القيمة اللي هي راح تكون قيمة معينة. Then I have printed my circle.getArea based on the radius here. Okay. طب الآن the number of objects created اللي هو circle with private data field to get number of objects. طب شباب كم عدد الاوبجكتس هنا اللي صار لها creation؟ 1 ولا 2؟ هذه الأخيرة. get number of object. وين get number of object؟ هذه. هذا number of object. Okay. private static. get number of object. Where is the method? I will يعني scroll down. هيها get number of object here. It is a public so I can use it. طيب get number of objects. كم الاوبجكتس اللي راح ترجع هنا؟ أو in the first time it was 0. but this is of type static. If you remember what I have explained, كان صفر, it was صفر. Now I have changed the value to 1. تغيرت صارت 1 في أول call هم. هذا زي ما قلنا هو reference على 1. Then I have called it the constructor again. زاد the number of objects. صار كم؟ 2. So the number of objects will become 2. Because it is a static. If I did not write the word static, أول مرة راح يكون 0 1. Second time it will be 0, then will become 1. يعني إذا كان non-static it will be 1 1. If it is a static it will be 1 2. Okay. Okay. That's all, guys, for today. I will يعني if you want to stay, it's okay. It's up to you. I will complete recording the lecture. Okay. Then I will go back to Enums. If you want to stay, it's okay. I will take now the attendance. It's if you don't want, it's up to you. I will record now. The attendance we have here. 1 minute, guys. هو 510 اللي هو class part 1. Again, I will take it from here to here, then file save as part 2. I will save it now. Now, guys, you have the option. If you want to stay and listen, it's up to you. I will record now, a complete recording. Complete recording my lecture. And this lecture is included in the midterm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now you have the option. You want to leave, it's okay. This it's up to you. If you want to stay, it's okay. I will complete recording. Now, guys, we have also passing object to methods. Can we pass object to method? Of course, like any other variables, like a structure in C++. Can we pass? Yes, we can. Okay, now, when we pass a primitive value, a primitive type, it will be passed by a value. Okay. When we pass an object to a method, it will be called by reference. Okay. Now, passing by value, you are taking a copy from the variables and change it. But the value in the main program is the same, will not be changed. This is what we have studied in C++. Now, if I have passed an object or an instance of a class, any change inside this function or this method will be directly referenced to the class, to the main method. So here we have, as you know, 2 types of passing. We can pass primitive types, or we can pass, and primitive type are passed by value. That's just like integer, character, Boolean. And also we can pass these objects by reference. But if we want to pass this object, if we have pass this object, we will pass it by, this object will be passed by call by reference. So any modification on this object in the method will be reflected to to the main program. راح تكون تنعكس على المين program. Now here we have, as you can see here, I have this constructor. I have created my class called test, and I have used this one, a new object pass, a new object pass, new object pass. I have created 3 constructor, or I have created 3 objects, object 1, object 2, and object 3. Now these objects are now created in the memory and have this value. It's just like any other instance. If you have look at this now, here we have object 1 have A 100 and B 222, and the same for B object 2, and the same for object 3. I am talking now about the object. I did not talk about this now. Okay, I did not talk about this. I am talking about now the constructor, or calling the constructor. Object 1, object 2, and we have also here object 3. I will go back again to the page here. So I have passed this value here. Now, after that, I have used a method called where is the method? Here, equal to. Equal to is used to compare the value of the constructor. If the value of the constructor of the base constructor equal the value of A, if the value of the base object here dot A equal A, and the value of the base object B equal B, it will return true. If they are not equal, because true and true, if they are not equal, it will return false. So let's see what's happening, or what would happen here in the memory. In the memory now, we are going to call equal to OP1 and OP2. Now this is OP2. هاي OP2. راح يعمل الآن compare. راح يعمل create لأوبجكت هذا اسمه NOBG. هذا هو reference هذا. Like as we have seen below, هذا reference لهذا الأوبجكت for this object. I will go back here. هاي inner object. الآن what we are comparing, we are to compare الفاليو اللي مررناها في ال OOB2 مع القيم. هذه ال OOB2 inner object. We will compare هل ال OB2.A equal A and هل ال OB2.B equal B. الآن ال A will be we have passed في ال A I we have when we call the constructor وحطينا في ال B J. هاي object pass demo. هاي object pass new object pass اللي هو it is the constructor here. So I will be equal the value A, and J will be assigned to the value B. Now I have passed to A 100 and 122. Now I am compare, and also I have passed to the object 2 122. Now I want to compare if object 1 is equal to object 2. Are they equal? Now object 1 will compare the value. We'll look now at object 2 because I have passed it by the function. Because I have passed this a class or this instance by a function, it will be called by reference. It seems that I made object 2 look at what inner object look or points at object 2. How did I do that? Again here كأني قلت له خلي assign الأوبجكت 2 هذا الأوبجكت 2 في الانر اوبجكت. كأني قلت له كده inner object يساوي OB2. أخذت هذا حطيته في هذا. هذا as we said it is called by reference. So because it is called by reference, now inner objects will look as we have explained before, to what OB2 look at. Now OB2 is look at this, so inner object will look at this and it will compare. Are they equal? Yes, they are equal. هذا equal, هذا equal, هذا equal. So in that case it will return هنا true. Now I will go to the next call. If you remember, في next call I have assigned -1 and 1. هي في الconstructor here -1 and 1. Now هي -1 and 1 here. Now I have to call this function. As we have said, passing the objects by function, the object will be passed by value. That means هنا I have put OB3, sorry for this. أخذت هذا ال OB3 هنا put it في inner object. In other words خليت ال OB3 equal inner object. In other words, inner object. In other words, now OB inner OBG now points at what OB2 points to. يعني هذا بأشر على اللي بأشر عليه OB2. As we have said here. شوفوا الرسمة الآن صار في الكول الثاني ال OB2 يؤشر على OB3. هذا in the second call. هذه الأولى طبعا في الفيرست كول. Now, are they equal? Of course they are not. راح يرجع لي كم؟ false. لأنه هذا contains -1 1 وهذا contains sorry 100 في ال A will be 122 هنا -1 and 1. So they are not equal. The idea behind this that this object, when we pass it through function, they will be called by reference. This means I put again OB2 in inner object هنا في inner object. That means إنه now inner object will look at what OB2 is looking at. في هذا الكول أنا قلت له خلي ال OB3 inside the inner object because it is called by reference. I am dealing with addresses. That means that I have made inner object look at OB3. Okay, this is in Java. So the main idea behind this page is to tell you that objects are passed by reference. Objects are passed by reference. Now, in the second here, in the second array of objects, can we define array of objects? Yes. So in the normal array or regular array, we can say int, for example, x equal number يساوي new int of 10 مثلا. The same thing. Can we define array of a class, array of objects? Yes. I have here is the type اللي هو circle. هذا class in the language. That means brackets, square brackets. That means I'm going to define array. The array is called circle array. It is array of object. How many objects this array circle array contains? The size of this array is 10. So it is contain array from 0 to 9. These elements are of type object. What is the object type? It is the circle. Okay. Can I deal with them individually, each element? Yes. For example, I can write circle array 1.getArea. This is a method inside the array. Okay. And of course, this if we have bought this array during function, the circle array will be called this array will be passed by reference. like C++. If you have pass any array and modify the array inside the function, the array will be modified directly in the main program. And the same here. If you have passed any array or any array of objects like this during the function, the array value will be modified. And of course, you can deal with everyone individually. كل element كأنه لحاله, or you can write a for loop, whatever you like. It is just guys to remind you and make things easier to you, like array of struct إذا بتتذكروها. Array of structure, array of struct, and the structure we have variable, we have method, structure. The same. We can here add variable and access this variable, but in Java now you can access the object, the variable, and the method. لأنه الآن إحنا object oriented, it is object. So we can add هنا variable and we can here add method, and each object of type circle inside this array has the same variable. You can access the variable inside it, and you can access the method inside it. Of course, this depends on على المodifier. يعني إذا عندك أنت protected أو public أو private whatever, this will be considered as we have studied previously. So can we define array of objects in Java? Yes, we can. Okay. Now, immutable objects and classes. This is a new concept. Means that once an object is created, we cannot change its content. أنت عملت object, عملت له create, you cannot change its content. So when you construct the object, ما بتقدر تغير أي شيء، أي قيمة داخله. This is called immutable class. Class is immutable is called class of is immutable object is called an immutable class. يعني الكلاس اللي تابع لهذا الأوبجكت هو immutable class. So we have immutable class mean the object is created, but we cannot change any value after the creation fee. بعد الكرييشن fee. If you delete the set method in the circle class, بقول لك هنا if you have delete the set method in the circle class, the class would be immutable because radius is private and cannot be changed without a set method. فالآن as example, هذا in this example بقول لك this class will be immutable. ليش؟ لأنه أنت شلت الست method. طب نرجع بالله له هذا اللي هو class radius circle sorry. وين السيركل؟ I will go back. هذا بقول لك if you have deleted this one اللي هو set radius, where is the set radius here؟ هذا الكلاس now immutable. ليش؟ Because you cannot modify anything inside it. Okay, you cannot modify anything inside it. Inside this. خلاص. في عندي one private وهذا private I cannot modify it. وهذا private I cannot modify it. So you have removed the method that modify this value. Okay. You can create it with a value. It's okay. You can create it with a value, but you cannot modify it. ما بتقدر تعدل عليه after creation because this method is deleted. So in that case, this class is immutable. This class is immutable if you have deleted this one because you don't have access to do anything with any value here. طب الآن this is the statement here, the second one. Now, for example, a class with all private fields and without data field and without mutator is not necessarily immutable. For example, the following class student has all private data and no mutators, but it is immutable. شوف هذا الكلاس، شوف هذا كيف هنا. هذا الكلاس بقول لك انه هذا هو كله برايفت. طيب، وما في اي set method. It does not contain any set method. But هذا الكلاس immutable. Why? خلينا نشوف ليش هذا mutable. For example, the following class student has all private data field. أيوه. And this class is immutable. Why? Why this class is immutable? Because now we have public class birth date. أيوه هذا. And inside this class هنا we have called this constructor اللي هو birth date. هي birth date of type private birth date. birth date هو عبارة عن it is a class here. Now when I have construct my student, I have put some value here. طيب, construct my student in the main program. Now also after that I have called this method. يعني هنا in the main program you will see that no, here you have construct your student. Right. Now after calling this statement here, now you will go sequentially, of course. So these values are assigned here and you start constructing the student. Now you will call this again, and you will call this class. This class is using constructor year, month, day. Year, month, day. These value passed here, month, will year, with day from the main program is also passed here, and this value also passed here, and also this value has been changed. So now this class does not contain any set value, but the value has been changed through other constructor from other class. So this is all the fields here are private, all the fields are private, all private, no set, but it is immutable. Why it's immutable? Because I have called another constructor from another class inside it, and this constructor allow me to change the value here. So the value here is changed, so the value here also is changed, okay, inside this class. So the birth date also is changed. So in that case, this is a non-immutable, immutable class, not immutable, immutable. Now I will go again here. A class all private data field and without mutator, it's not necessarily immutable. For example, the following class student has all private data field and no mutator, but it is immutable. Okay, so it is changed now. Here we have set title. This is a public method. Now I can use the title here fill string and I have get title. Is this code immutable? Yes. Why? Because I have changed, set the value here and change it. No, this is not immutable, sorry, because I have the ability to change the private data. I will go to next slide. Now we have scope variable here. We have local, we have studied this before, the scope of variable, static integer number, we have here public main method. So this is defined to the whole class, but it is static. So this will keep or remain keep the latest value inside it, because number is looking to integer value inside the memory. So if you have changed it, it will be changed. You will not be able to take a copy from this one. You just refer to, if you have defined مثلا C1, so C1.number refer to this one, C2.number refer to this one. It is a static one. You are referring to this value here, and here you have something. Now here this one is defined among, every variable is defined among its or in his scope. Now I will clear here. Now we have this keyword here. This keyword, guys, is refers to the object itself. Is this a reserved keyword? Yes, it is reserved and refer to the current object. We have seen some example for this. One common use of this keyword is reference of a class hidden data field. Another common use of this keyword is to enable constructor to invoke another constructor of the same class. هذا كمثال. As example here, can you see? Look at this. We have public class F1, private int I5, but private static double k equals 0. Now here we can use this one. Set I, this dot I equal I. Also set k equal k. Okay, so I can use the word this here, and also can we call it in the same program? Yes. Suppose that F1 and F2 are two objects of F, F1 new F and F2 new F. Can we call F1.setId of 10? Yes, to execute this. Yes, we can. Also, we can write this dot I equal 10. This dot I equal 10 in the same class. Okay, we are here in the same class, not in the same method. We are changing the value using the word this. That means change the value of the I in the same object. This dot I equal 10, and here this dot I in F2 equal 45. Okay. As you can see here, also another example. Calling overloaded constructor. Public circle double, this to radius equal radius. This must be explicitly used to reference the data field radius of the object being constructed. Okay, and another way to construct, we can also write the constructor like this. Public circle this. That means if you have called this constructor, the value will be set here to this of 10, and this of 10 will call this. This means circle. This of this of 1 will call this constructor, and we will set the radius here. So we can write the code the way we want here. And also here we can use this inside our return statement, this to radius multiply this to radius multiply math by. So this is the new thing here. If I call this constructor in the main program, he will execute this statement, and this statement will execute this one. This means circle. It refers to the object of the class and the class itself. So 1.0 will be passed here, and the value will be set here as mentioned. And here we are calculating the area. Okay. Look at this, guys. Again, here we have class test int AB. and also we have int a, int b test, this.a equal a, this.b equal b. Here I have displayed some value. Now here I have called test 10 and 20. So I will call this constructor. حسبت القيم and I have assigned them. Then I have printed them here. Now can I do this in another way? Yes, I can. If you use the word test هذه, test 1, okay. Test will call the default constructor. The default constructor here. For example, if you have something like this, test inside this class, okay. Sorry, I will remove this. What do we mean by this? We mean by this, this one, this code here هذا هو مكتوب داخل الكلاس، يعني هذا مكتوب هنا. This one is written here. Okay. مكتوب داخل not the main method. You have called this هذا written not the main. Sorry, I will erase again. This one is written here. هنا في هذا الكلاس. ورحت انت في المين ميثود قلت له test t1 يساوي new test. شو راح يعمل هو؟ راح يحاول يعمل construct. ما بلقى الديفولت ما بلقى هذا، بروح على الديفولت constructor اللي هو هذا. Because you did not pass any value هنا. We'll go to this. And this one, هذا اللاين اللي هو inside هذا الكلاس هنا راح يعمل call لمين؟ لهذا الكونستراكتور. And the value will be assigned to A and B and the value will be printed. Okay. So this is the end of our lecture 4. I will go back quickly and talk about Enums. And I will share the video with your colleague, and inshallah he will share the lecture with you. So now I will go and talk about Enums. Okay, we have reached to Enums, enumerated types. If you remember, we have talked about a lot of things. We have talked about for loop, while loop, if statements. We have also talked about methods, array, and we have mentioned here that we have 1 dimension, 2 dimension, maybe 3 dimension, 7 dimension array. So all of these, we have passed all of these topics in fundamental of programming in C++, and we have reviewed and added some new ideas and things here. Now I will go to the last one, which is the enumerated types, because I did not have time to explain this previously in the last lecture. So I will go to enumerated types here. It is there, enums, enumerated types. Now, enumerated types, example, enum type is a special data type that creates a set of predefined constant. A predefined constant. The enum type variable will store only one of the value from enum set. So now, enum, it is just, you can consider that the enum is a special data type. So in Enum, you can define or create your own data type. And this data type or this list contains set of predefined constants. So you will define your constant, and you can only use this constant inside this Enum. The enum type variable will store only one of the value from enum set. Okay. So you have created your type, call it grades, call it month, call it weeks, whatever you like, and you have assigned this type, you have saved or put in this type some value, predefined constant, some constant. You will be able to deal with these constant only. You will not be able to deal with other constant. And of course, enum, if you are trying to assign another value other than the enum set that you have predefined here, this will get a compile error. Of course, enum, like any other, it is just like a new data type. It has some methods to deal with. So enum, in general, it is a type that you can define. You can assign inside it some predefined or some constant value inside it, and you will not able to deal with other than this value here. These are predefined by the user. And also the month, for example, now it is of type enum, and enum, it is a type or a data type in Java, so it has some methods. You can use methods inside it. So quickly, I will go to this enum. This is enum is of type day. We have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This enum is contains the days, and these are constant. We prefer to make them capitalize. Now each one here is a constant, and it is capitalized, and you can only deal with these values inside this type. So your new type is day. So here, if you look at the main program, now you have defined day 1 of type what day, day 2 of type day. This day type is created by you as a developer or as a programmer, so you can use it directly. So day to Friday is stored in day 1. Day to Thursday is stored or assigned or saved in day 2. Now you can print here day.name, which is Friday, day 1.name, which is Friday, day 2.name, which is Thursday. So name is a method is a general method inside the enum type. The enum type. Return the name as a string. رجع الاسم كأنه string. And here we have printed the second, which is Thursday. Then we have printed the day dot original. Original mean the number of this day, the order mean of this day, starting from Monday. So Monday will be 1, 2 for Thursday, because the beginning of the weeks in the Western is the start day of the week is starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now here we are printing here the original. The original for day 1, which is a Friday, is equal 5. Starting as we said from Monday. Monday start with 1 because the beginning, the start of the week in the Western, the start day is 1 day. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here we have printed 5. Here we have printed 4. Then is day 1 equal day 2? No, false. Then we have printed day 1 to string. This is a method convert anything to string. This can be heavily used to string. You will find to string in Java. You will find to integer. You will find to double, whatever. So anything start with 2 something will convert the value to this one. Okay. Then here we have compare day 1 to day 2. Compare, of course, it returns 1 or 0 or -1. Now day 1 is a Friday and day 2 is Thursday. So day 1 is greater than day 2, so the value returned 1. If they are equal, the value returned will be 0. If day 1 is less than day 2, the value returned will be -1. So this is a quick example about the enums. You can define your own type, your own list, and you have to define a constant in your list, and you can use it. Here are some methods used with enums, as you can see. We want to show you that there is an enum type, and you can in Java define any type you want, and you can use any method you want. Sorry, not any method, the method that the applicable or the available method inside the enum. Okay. Now I will go to next. Here we have defined something like enum days, as you can see here. We have defined one method to use if, and we have if enum. Can we pass the list here? Yes. Day is of type days. Okay, day is of type days. So this is to tell you that we can define enum. We can pass enum through function, enum test or days, this enum through function. And here we have to do our checking using the if statement. Here we have passed to this function days day تساوي equal days to Friday, عرفنا الday. Then we have defined enum test from this list. It is just like C++ when you define structure 1 of type struct مثلا student. You will define, for example, not struct مثلا std, for example. So you can use std to deal with the structure. And the same here, you have defined object from enum test, this one, this class, and you have initialized it. Then you have called the method enum.ifnum, and you have passed the day here, which is Friday. And you have checked. Is it Friday? Is it Sunday? No. Is it Monday? No. Is it Tuesday? No. So system.out.println, it is Saturday. It will print on the screen. It is Saturday. Okay. Now the other method in the other activity here we have one last thing. We have here the same method, the same idea, but here we have used a switch. Can we use a switch? Yes. Can we pass day? Yes. Can we create object from this? Yes. Also, we have passed the day. Okay. So here are the last slide in the previous, or the last topic, which is enum in the previous lecture. Thank you all for listening and being patient with me, and good luck in the midterm. I will end now. Thank you all.